What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with a Detroit Lions mock draft. That is right, it is March 31st, so unless there is 32 days in March, we're in the last day before draft month. So I thought the best way to start this thing off was with a mock draft. So let's get it started. Welcome everybody to a video. Glad you guys are here. And I'm excited for this, man. Mock season, draft season, it's right here. It's right around the corner. And a lot of April is going to be that. I mean, there may be other things thrown in there. If we get news, we can do that as well. But for the most part, it's going to be a lot of draft stuff. So I know you guys want me to react to some of your mocks. That's going to be happening. These last couple days, I've been just diving into a lot of prospects, trying to learn as much as I possibly could in a short amount of time. And I'm going to continue to do that throughout the month. I'm not going to sit here and say I know every prospect. So it's like, hey, you throw me a mock draft, I'm going to know everybody that you put on there. I don't. But I really wanted to expand how many players that I knew of and that I felt good about in terms of what I knew of those players. That way I can actually react to mock drafts. If I know 8 players, the mock draft is going to be boring for me to react to. I'm just reacting on position then. And I don't want to do that because the Lions over the last few years, and especially this year, have done a fantastic job in free agency of there's not a lot of clear-cut needs. You know, we're not drafting in a sense based on need, even though some of that does go into it because there is positional value. That's a thing. And I'm going to continue to learn. So again, I don't know everybody, so I want to make that clear. So as we do mock drafts, things are probably going to change because I'm going to learn more and more. But with that being said, reacting to mocks, live mocks, all of these things are happening in April. So it's a great way to start it off. And I'm going to call this one, you know, post-free agency. I know everybody, the 1.0, the 1.5, the 2.0. I'm going to be honest, I don't even know what that means. I really don't. Like, I don't know what the difference is between 1.5 and 2.0. Is it just that, like, it's a little tweak, but it's like the same thing? Like, what if I put 1.1? Is that just less of a tweak? Like, I don't know the difference. So I don't know if I'm going to put that at a time. I might, just because, everybody does it. It kind of looks cool. So I might do that. But with that being said, I call this my post-free agency mock. I know the live one was also called that. But the Lions made a move since then. And at this point, moves are always happening and something else could pop up. But I'm going to assume for the most part, it's going to get pretty quiet with the Lions. I mean, you never know. But Dan did tell us that maybe 1 or 2 moves would pop up. And that was before they signed Marvin Jones Jr. So at this point, there might be like another thing that pops up. But I don't think there's going to be massive moves with the Lions in free agency at this point. I use Profile Focus and their simulator. That way I try to keep some boundaries towards it, even though I don't think you're like cheating if you don't use the simulator because we don't know where these guys are going to go. And on top of that, PFF doesn't have all their players in their simulator. So at the same time, it's like there's certain guys that maybe I want to draft, but they're not there. And that actually shows up once in here. So I don't know if it's cheating. I don't feel like it's cheating. All right, well, I'll explain it when I get there. But, you know, maybe it's cheating. I don't know. However you want to look at it. And then finally, I am available making trades because I know the Lions will make trades. I know there's well, that's not realistic. But would I have thought that the Lions would move from 32 to 12 last year to grab a receiver? No. You got to leave everything on the table because the Lions are willing to move, and they're going to be because they built through the draft. You have to be willing to move the board. So I think it's fine to do these mock drafts with trades. It make tons of trades in this mock. I do have one. I thought it was kind of fun. I just threw in here. Download the image of my draft so I can put it up at the end. You know, PFF usually hate. You know, they were hating when we were live. They're probably hating now. I don't even know what the final grade was. You'll see it just for like proof or something. You know, like, hey, this is real. I don't know. Anyway, let's dive right into this, man. We're going to start with the first pick for the Lions at number 6 in the 2023 NFL Draft. In one position, the one clear-cut need that I think I can legitimately point to for the Detroit Lions is the defensive tackle position. And I think it was Brad Holmes actually made that pretty clear when he spoke on Isaiah Buggs in the re-signing, saying that, you know, he's a really good player. We know he's young. He hasn't had a ton of experience, but he had to play a lot of snaps last year. He almost like pointed to the fact that he had to be a starter this past season. And you don't necessarily maybe want him to be that, but if he's a backup, I really like that for Buggs, his flexibility, his versatility within this offense. So he kind of left that open. That's like, yeah, that's a need for us. And I feel like if you're looking in this mock draft, there are some really good defensive tackles towards the top. And I'm not afraid of getting guys that may be a little bit undersized for that 3-tech position, right? Even if they are only 285, as long as they can handle it, there you go. Like Kalijah Kancey, I know he's undersized, but he's shown that he can handle it. You are looking for kind of your normal size of a 3-tech, but also the great athlete. That is so hard to find. People overpay the heck out of them. They're so difficult to hit in free agency because they're never available. It takes a lot to get those kind of players. Now, there's developmental guys that I like. You know, there is the Carl Brooks who played a lot of edge at Bowling Green. Didn't play much inside aside from, you know, really like the Mississippi State game. A man out of South Carolina whose name's slipping my mind for some reason right now. You guys know, oh, Zach Pickens. I like him, but, you know, he's probably not like immediate plug-in starter. Like, it's clear at this point in time. So with that being said, with the 6th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Now, I know when I make this pick, it's going to have some hate. It's going to have some love. I understand all of that. I'm not going to be focused too much on the off-the-field stuff because for me, I don't know a lot of those things. You know, that the team can come to that conclusion. They will learn his background. The scouts will do their job in that sense, and there's a lot of things that they'll know that we just don't know at this point in time. All I know is what's out there. All I know is, you know, I know about the crash. I understand that situation happened. But then outside of that, I'm just watching the film, so I can only really tell you what I see on the film because I have that. With that being said, it's kind of similar to the Micah Parsons situation. So the Lions want to figure out if he checks out or not. And if he doesn't, if they don't like his character and they don't, you know, believe that it's something that, because like Brad Holmes said, the football character is what separates guys. Easy to find talent, but guys that are going to put in that work that can separate themselves is who you want. So if they come to the conclusion that that's not it for them, then hey, I'm like, hey, I get it. I understand that completely. But if they come to the conclusion that they like him, I'm going based on the film here, and all I can tell you is that I understand he's a young player. I understand what happened with the crash. It was awful, and obviously the pro day didn't look great, the way that he came in shape. It's a really tough thing to go through for a guy that's literally my age. With that being said, I can tell you what I see when I watch the games of him, and Jalen Carter, to me, is an absolute animal, one of the best players in this draft. And when I say that, I don't even think he's to clean it. Like, he's not the most consistent. You're going to get some misses, but that's because he's such a young player. Still, he's been so dominant. Athletically speaking, I mean, there's not a lot of... It's really difficult to compare him to anybody. 6'3", 314, and he's only a 3-year junior. Like, a lot of guys come out as seniors, especially if you're going to be this high of a draft pick, man. You have to be super talented to not be a senior. Athletically, with his build... There's just not a lot of guys that kind of touch that. For a guy that's 315, be able to handle double teams, right? So to me, there's no question there because when you see he can legitimately handle double team blocks, combo blocks, down blocks, those kind of things. But at the same time, he also gives you that elite pass rush upside. And when he's asked to pin his ears back and just rush upfield, Tennessee, the dude looks insane. And you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's as good as I've seen. But then there's also the flip side, like he can handle the run with no problem. I personally, games I've watched, and you know, I'll keep going back, but I haven't seen any issues with like, oh, I think he's taking plays off. I've seen him look tired. I've seen that, and he's going to rotate in our defense. I have seen things like that. I've also seen issues with him against the run where he's just kind of running out of plays, doesn't seem to necessarily understand how the offense wants to play him. So I do see question marks with a player that is still a little bit younger. Even his pass rush plan, I don't think it's completely polished. But with that being said, the consistency in his base as a run defender, the upper body strength, the background of athleticism that he has, 7-on-7 camps as a receiver, those kind of things, like the dude is an absolute animal. And I do think it's kind of feels like the offense in the sense of, man, you put that piece in there, whoever that may be, if you find that piece and you tie that with Hutchinson and Ali McNeil and James Houston and Josh Paschal and now John Kaminsky, like you find that piece, it feels like the offensive line in the sense of you may be completing this offense, you may be completing this defensive line. And again, this is almost kind of to the Jalen Ramsey point, but for a young player, all the character background with him. But I do think that this is a strong culture, and especially for a defensive lineman, I think it could really be beneficial for him. We no longer have Michael Brockers here, but some of those younger guys are kind of stepping into that role. So I think this is a culture that can handle maybe some questions with that being said. But Jalen Carter, he's an absolute animal, and I think he's absolutely worthy of this selection. They'll have to figure out the off-the-field stuff, but I can tell you what I see on film. Just like Micah, I loved him. I love me some Jalen Carter on the field, man. He's an absolute animal, and I think it fills our biggest need immediately in the draft if this is possible. So if that happens, there you go. Jalen Carter's a Lion. Now, again, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself in the drafting for needs, and I really don't feel like I did that. I feel like I got a lot of players that I loved. I mean, I went through so many combinations for this mock draft. Y'all don't understand. It's not like I just picked it up and was like, hey, I love this, and here you go. Like, this has been a work in progress because I've been going through so many players that I feel really good about these guys. I'm like, man, I like these guys as Lions in terms of what I see from them on the field. With this next pick, we're getting maybe a little bit more projection than certain players at this position coming out, especially this high. Well, we're taking cornerback Deontay Banks out of Maryland. So right here, immediately after taking Carter, it's like I can go a whole bunch of directions. I mean, I felt like I could go anywhere with this. I thought about trading up, moving. I mean, there's so many things I feel like I can do with this spot. Heck, receiver, you know, depending on who's there, maybe even though you may be getting an undersized guy for what you're looking for. But I feel like I can go anywhere. Tight end. I literally consider tight end. I know some of you think he won't draft a tight end. I consider tight end. I really did. And there's certain tight ends that I like. But I went with Deontay Banks at the spot with him being available doing the Pro Football Focus mock draft. Like, athletically, there's no questions within his game. I mean, the guy ran a 4.35 40, a 42-inch vertical. there's no questions with him athletically in that sense. Foot basically 200 pounds. The foot quickness looks like a guy that's 5'9". Like when you see a guy change directions and you see a guy with that kind of quickness in the lower body, you expect him to be like 5'9". No, he's 6 foot, so he can handle the outside responsibilities. It looks special. It's so smooth in his ability to transition. With that being said, though, the consistency as a press corner is something that I think has to come along a little bit. I think the timing, you see it at the top of routes for him to anticipate route breaks, just his timing when to sink, ability to mirror from off coverage is probably where you see the quick feet the most, and it's just like, man, that's special. But again, I have some anticipation questions. He can play zone because he's so fluid, and then he just questions some route awareness there. So I don't think it's like the complete prospect, but I do feel like if you're willing to do this, you can do it because of what you now have. After signing Emmanuel Mosley, having Cam Sutton, who, you know, he's going to be a long-term part of this. This secondary got a big overhaul in free agency. I understand that. Again, I was trying not to draft for need. I just really like Deontay Banks and the upside here. And a lot of times you get some really nice corners at the end of the first round if you notice, right? There's always like little questions with him, but this guy's just special athletically. So with that being said, now you pair him in with Cam Sutton, who's going to be a long-term part of this. Chauncey's only got the 1 year left. This guy could probably sit in the slot if you want him to, play a big slot role, to be honest with you. Press technique needs to be cleaned up, but he's physical at the line. He's willing to be there. He has ball skills. He plays through the hands, and he has great recovery upside in terms of athleticism. And obviously you have Jeff Okudah on his last year. Like, there's not a ton of guys under contract beyond this year. So while it may not be immediate for him, I think the future could be so bright with Deontay Banks. So I'm taking him here at pick number 18. That moves us into the second round, and with the 48th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions are selecting quarterback Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. This one to me honestly kind of feels like the Carter one in terms of you're going to people that love this, people that hate it. It almost feels like it's kind of overdone at this point, I guess, in a sense, because everybody seems to mock Hendon Hooker to the Lions. I get it, all right? I'm not trying to be basic. I don't like to be basic. I don't like to do the same thing, all right? You know I don't like to do that, but I really like Hendon Hooker, man. Now, there's legitimate questions with the guy, but I think if you just step back and look at it situationally before we even talk player, just look at the situation. I think the situation really makes a lot of sense. He's coming off an ACL tear. He's a 25-year-old quarterback, right? That's going to push some teams away immediately. And I don't even think his game right now, because of the offense that they played in, if he was immediately healthy, you'd want him to step out there year one. Like, I don't think you'd want that. With that being said, though, worst case scenario, I could see Hendon Hooker developing into a very reliable, smart backup quarterback, which, again, would probably be like the worst case for him. Take some time figuring out an NFL offense, playing in an offense that's a little bit different, where there's more reads to the field. Like, I just think situationally it makes sense, and it's not a first round pick that you're utilizing on a guy like this, so I think that's also kind of nice as well. Now, you don't get the 5th year option, which I guess kind of stinks, but I think situationally it makes sense. If it worked, great. We know a lot of drafted quarterbacks usually miss, so if it doesn't work, you know, it was a 2nd round pick, but I'm not just doing that because, like, well, there's an out. Like, I really do like Hendon Hooker. Obviously, you see his statistics, which are insane, but with that being said, you also have to keep in mind the play style of the offense. There's a lot of half-field read here. There's a lot of plays where the other side of the field doesn't even run routes. They're just kind of walking, right? There's a lot of that for Hooker. So you wonder about his transition into a different offense. Look, this guy, he makes me think I'm watching a robot when I watch him, which is good and bad. Like, the timing is so darn important to this guy. You see the consistency with his lower body, getting his feet under him, playing with great base, standing in the pocket when there's pressure. Like, he looks like a robot. Now, I know people like, hey, he doesn't have a lot of off-schedule throws. Yeah, there's not a lot of fluidity within his game, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, there's not a lot of creativity there. When something breaks down, I think part of that's because of the offense. There's not, again, sometimes it's not even backside read, so it's like, oh, that's not there. I'm just gonna run. There's that, and at the same time, that's just part of his game. You even see it on, like, rollouts. For a guy that's the athlete that he is, you would think, like, oh, he's gonna look fluid on the move. He doesn't. Like, things look kind of weird when he's on the move and he's outside the pocket. But because he's so consistent in his technique, you do get really nice accuracy. Now, you get some lapses, especially when you're talking about between the numbers, middle of the field, things like that. And I think a lot of it is, like, little things can throw off his timing. I feel like he's not the most fluid reactor. Like, if something gets shaken up, meaning a receiver gets bumped off through his route and it throws off the timing, like, being able to respond to that and then still find a way to put it on him, it feels weird for him. But when things are on time, he's so darn accurate with the football. And obviously, probably the biggest thing that people love is his deep ball accuracy. And I think it's just weird. That's why I'd say it looks like a robot, because he has such an ability to throw with anticipation, lead guys downfield, and drop it in the bucket. It's like, wow, that's top level in the draft class from the quarterback. I've seen a lot of these quarterbacks, that's like top level. But then there's also the flip side of when you watch him, he'll just throw guys out of bounds. It'll like, hey, that's a great trajectory, but you threw it out of bounds. And that's because he doesn't even throw the ball like sometimes back inbounds, throwing the receiver back inbounds, because he's just like throwing where the receiver is going. So if it's like there's an angle there, he's like throwing it straight out of bounds. So I don't think there's like I don't know if the feel is there right now. I don't think the feel is there right now. But obviously, the willingness to stand in the pocket and deliver, throw really good passes, and there's some athletic upside. Now, as a runner, he takes way too many hits. He's not super elusive as a runner either. It's not like you're watching, you know, Anthony Richardson or something like that. He just takes way too many hits. I'm like, dude, you just got to slide. Okay, but he's a guy that shows up on third down. He's going to compete for the first down, take off, run, whatever it's going to take. Now, his ball security in terms of fumbling is something I have questions with, okay, because, again, sometimes there's not always the urgency there or just recognition to be like, dude, just protect the football. Don't take this hit. Or second level touch, you see like underneath linebackers, and he protects the football. I think if there's something that you're going to like here, and you're saying if you're Campbell, if you're like, hey, you know, we want a guy maybe with a little more athleticism that can run. He's not a running quarterback. He's not Lamar, right? But he can move. But at the same time, he's got to be willing to protect the football as a passer. The last 2 years, he only has 5 interceptions to 58 touchdowns. A lot of that's the offense. A lot of stuff doesn't happen off schedule, so he's not putting the ball in harm's way naturally because of that. But at the same time, I do give him credit in terms of he feels defender leverage, and he does not lead a receiver into the defender's pass. Like, he'll throw it behind him. He'll throw it in front. He'll lead his guy away from where that defender is. He does protect the football as a passer. He just has to be better there in terms of not fumbling. Not trying to say that they were the same offenses. They were very different. But even a guy like Bailey Zappi, when he came out last year, because of that offense that he played in, that air raid offense, there was questions, but he was really good within that offense. That's why he carried it from Western Kentucky. So you knew what he was good at, And I think with Hooker, you have to give him that credit. You'll see no-look passes, the confidence with this guy, the feel in this offense, you know, understanding where protections are at, where I need to look. The RPO reads are pretty consistent. There's a couple misses, you know, and then when you get accuracy misses, usually it's a touch too high, back a little bit late to something, and that's where you get some accuracy hit and miss. But you got to give him credit for his growth and his understanding of the offense. Hendon Hooker, really good athlete. He's going to take some time. And also, you know, Jared Goff played in an air raid scheme, right, at Cal, but there was a lot of RPO to it. And we know, I think it was a lot of the intangibles that Brad Holmes fell in love with here. And I can understand why you'd like those with Hendon Hooker as well. From what I see, a guy that's grown from year to year, really good intangibles with this player. So I take Hendon Hooker at 48. Number 55, the Detroit Lions select Keon White. I hope I'm saying his name right. I apologize. There's no sound when I watched him because of the All-22. But Keon White, defensive end out of Georgia Tech, transfer from Old Dominion, where he actually played tight end. The guy's 6'4". You see the thing, 6'4", basically 6'5", 281, fifth-year senior. The dude is massive, all right? He's absolutely massive. But at the same time, you talk about some of the guys that's a little bit more of a projection. This is one of the most athletic freaks I think that you're going to find. And for defensive line, I like that. I like getting freaks. You know, I like getting guys that are super athletically. Now, at pick number 1, right, if I'm taking Trayvon Walker, that's not really what I'm looking for, even though Hutchinson was a monster athletically as well. But for a guy at pick 55, with the defensive line that we have, and I think certain teams aren't going to love the situation of, okay, if we need to play him immediately, right? He's going to play. He'll find a way to rotate him just because of the way that he plays, the hustle, the effort that he plays with, the power. I mean, just the sheer athleticism to overpower guys that just aren't ready for it. Like, he's going to find a way onto the field. He'll rotate in. With that being said, I think a lot of teams aren't in that situation where if they're going to be drafting an edge high, they're going to want him to plug in and be like, you need to start. And you're going to get not consistency here. But because of our situation, Charles 1 year left, Romeo 1 year left, Julian 1 year left, technically James Houston is 1 year left, you're going to have a little bit of a buffer potentially here with him as well, which I think is beneficial. Shout out to the Lions, because again, a lot of times you project what are they going to be in year 2. And I think you give this guy a year of good development. If he has good development and he takes that next step that you hope he can with a good defensive line coach, we have a new defensive line coach this year, this guy could be insane. He could be absolutely insane. He almost reminds me of Cam Jordan, just in the sense of the build. When Cam Jordan came out, he was like 285. Great athlete, but for him, he was just more technically sound, right? Great athlete, just more technically sound. White, I think, is a better athlete, just not as technically sound. Definitely a concern with that. I did have concerns, but at this part in the draft, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do this because, again, you're going to play lighter boxes. The Lions are going to lean on DBs. They said it's built through D-line and a secondary. Well, if you're going to have less, front 7 guys, it's nice to have guys that can win their one-on-ones consistently. They're not going to be pushed out of the play. With Jalen Carter, same thing here with Keon White, and I feel like you're getting the same thing. We know Saints played a 4-2-5, so you have to have guys that can handle their own. They got to have big dudes on the front. But to get that athleticism on top, it's hard to find at that position. It just is, and I think that you're getting that here because of the fact that it's not there right now. As a run defender, sometimes he just loses contain. He loses contain consistently on read options, things like that. It's almost like he closes his eyes when he's attacking the backfield sometimes. But at the same time, you'll never question the dude's hustle. You'll never question his effort. I saw him against Georgia chase a running back down the field like 80 yards. I was like, what the heck? In coverage. And I saw, like he'll drop into coverage at that size. It's weird. He should not look like that. I mean, he needs to get his hands and feet kind of paired together as a pass rusher for more consistency there. Other times his pass rush plan looks messed up because he doesn't create leverage that he's capable of. Sometimes he doesn't create it and he's just kind of like running in, and it's like you're not getting the movement that he could. The guy had, I think, 30 bench press reps, 34-inch arms. Like, he's crazy strong. He could just dominate guards. He dominates guards at times against the runs, and he's just ragdolling dudes around when he ends up sinking. I love the way the guy plays. I don't have any questions with that. It's just got to be development there, I think, for Keon White. And there's reason to concern because he's played the position enough, even back to high school, that it would be more than where it's at right now. Seeing teams do this, sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't, but to do it here, maybe even later in the draft if you could, I'm willing to take that risk because I think for this defense, it makes a lot of sense schematically, especially with who else was available at the spot, especially for edge. Like, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the shot on the guy. I don't have an issue with that. So, Keon White, pick 55. Now, moving into round 3, staying in day number 2, pick number 81 in the 2023 NFL Draft. The Detroit Lions select tight end Luke Schoonmaker out of Michigan. I know some of y'all are like, no way he just took a tight end. All right, some of y'all are like, there's no way he took a tight end. Like, y'all think I won't draft linebackers or tight ends. I gave y'all a tight end. But in seriousness, one thing that I thought about, and I thought about this yesterday when I was finishing this up, is I actually finished it up today, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't want to walk out of this draft and feel like, man, we got worse offensively because we lost Chark. Like, I would like to come out of this and feel like we improved offensively. Obviously defensively, which I think at this point we've gotten a lot better, but offensively as well. I want to come out saying, man, I think we got better this year. I want to feel good about that, and I think Schoonmaker brings that. It makes me feel really good about what we put together in this offense. I mean, he's not the most flashy player. Athletically speaking, there's not a lot of limitations. I mean, if you're just going numbers, dude ran a 4.63, 33.5-inch vertical. Like, he's a good athlete. You can see him open it up, drags, crossers, flats. Like, he has some speed. You see it up the seam sometimes. He can run up the seam, run away from certain linebackers in Tampa too, looks defensively. With that said, you don't get a lot of yak because there's not a lot of make you miss, not a lot of craftiness with the ball, and he doesn't run through guys necessarily. I think he needs to get stronger. I think he does as a run blocker. He just needs to get stronger, and that's something that's going to take maybe some time to develop throughout the year. I think you can do that in the NFL, but he has all the other things that I want, and I was really focused on his blocking because the Lions seemingly made that clear. They want a guy that can block. But he's got hands. He catches everything with his hands. He's got really nice, reliable hands. I think one thing that I love for him as a receiver is his ability to kind of sit down, zone coverage underneath, be a reliable target for the quarterback, make himself open underneath on some of those quick hitters, some of the spacing routes we do. We do it with golf a lot. 3-step, boom, hit the tight ends. We've seen those with Brock Wright, when we do the stick routes, things like that. He's going to be able to plug into that and do that immediately. But I really liked his blocking. As a pass protector, really feel good about that. And I have a lot of questions with our current tight ends and pass protecting. Maybe not as much run blocking, more so pass protecting. I really felt good about that because consistent base width, plays with balance as a pass protector and awareness as well. And then also as a run blocker as well, you get the competitiveness, you get the efficiency in positioning himself early. Probably one of my favorite parts is the explosiveness off the line. Like, this dude has some get off, right? And he pops into position so quickly that he can play himself in a really good spot early against the run. Now, second level, you're going to have some things that are going to need to be worked on, but his ability to reset hands, locate second guys at the second level without holding, without grabbing players. Like, an efficient blocker is the sense that I get of this guy, while at the same time bring you receiving production as well and a good athlete. Like, you're going to be able to open it up. I think the route running it's a little stiff. I don't know how much creativity is going to be there, but he can be a 3-level tight end threat. We aren't going to use our tight ends in a huge way, but I think he does a lot of things that we ask our tight ends efficiently, and that's what I really like about Luke Schoonmaker here. So I took him at pick 81, and it may take a little time because he's got to get stronger, I think, in general, even as a receiving target, just be able to overpower certain guys. But with what we have, you kind of have, again, a buffer because you have Brock Wright for another year, because you have Shane for another year. Obviously, you have James Mitchell, but, you tell me 2024, and we're going Schoonmaker and James Mitchell. I really like that combination. I really like that combination together for what they can bring. Today, number 3, at pick number 152, the Detroit Lions stay on the offensive side of the ball and select a running back. This time, I'm selecting Eric Gray out of Oklahoma. He's a Tennessee transfer. I would be honestly a little shocked if this guy was available this late. I mean, I guess it's not like he had, he went out and ran like a 4.340. He didn't even run the 40 time. So there's not that, he doesn't have the most missed tackles. I mean, he's not like, I guess, top level at maybe anything necessarily, But my goodness, do I like Eric Gray. Dude, just his run style, the creativity that he brings. I understand he's not the fastest back, but neither is DeAndre Swift. Swift is a little bit more quick than fast. I really see this as a guy that could be a future back with David Montgomery. I think this could be a really nice combination. You could see the statistics that he put up this last season were incredible, but the combination, I think, between those two could be great. I mean, there's a lot of pulling work, a lot of power runs that he has offensively with Oklahoma versus some other running backs, so a lot of that, a lot of the gaps and things like that, but you also do get some zone work, and on third downs, you'll see it. You'll see some of that urgency when he finds a hole to just go, to attack, to push the line of scrimmage. You'll get some of that. Now, he's not a short yardage back by any means. We don't need that in Eric Gray, but he's also got receiving ability. It's not just upside, like, oh, I saw him catch 2 passes. Like, the dude can actually pass catch. Now, as a pass protector, willing to stick his nose in, consistent reads of blitzes. Now, he got ran over a little bit too much, which is something that, you know, competitively, he's going to be thrown to the fire immediately in training camp and practice. Like, dude, this has to get better. You're not going to get ran over because we're going to be laughing at you. So I don't think that's going to last super long. But the smarts are there, the intelligence there, a really nice back. I mean, he's so good in the open space. Gaining forward lean through the hole. Undersized, so he doesn't get much pop as much as you would expect for a guy of his size, but he does drag guys forward if they tackle him high. But on top of that, you get some Amir Abdullah vibes in space, man, the craftiness. Some guys just have a feel for it, the ability to set up defenders with the little dead leg or the stutter step, and then just the agility in open space. He's got this nasty spin move that he can put in space. I really like him as a runner. I really do. The leverage to stop and start sink, I think is just special. Now, the edge speed is not great. It's not elite. It's not like he's going to beat you to the corner. Neither is Swift, though, I'm going to be honest, right? So I think, again, depending on what happens with Swift this year, you're getting a guy that could potentially replace some of what you may lose in DeAndre Swift, but at the same time, you're getting, I think, a 3-down running back. I think you really are. This is a fun running back to watch. You'll fall in love with him after watching him for a little bit. I guarantee if you haven't seen him yet, just pull up some highlights. All right, continuing in to day number 3 at round number 6 and now, and you could say I cheated with this draft pick because it's not technically through PFF, but the guy's not on their board. You know, them visiting with him. I didn't take him because we visited with him. I want to make that clear. Went through a lot of these guys at this spot. I'm still going through them, and I'm like, okay, which one do I like? Which one do I not like? Which guy fits? I think this guy just fits. I really do. Jordan McFadden, guard out of Clemson, 6'2", 303. Actually, he's a tackle, but he's played both tackle spots with Clemson. You notice a lot of linemen are bringing in, played left tackle, but with either way, Jordan McFadden, I think his skill set just kind of fits what the Lions do offensively. I don't think McFadden is as much as the vertical pass set guy that you get with like certain tackles coming out. I think he's a little bit more of the quick setting, 3-step drop, timing offense. I think he's a little bit more of that, which is fine for what the Lions do, so I think that makes sense. But at the same time, you look at his frame and the way that he's built, his upper body specifically, he carries really long arms for a guy that's 6'2". It looks almost unnatural. Like, you shouldn't have that long of arms for a guy that's 6'2", and we know length is great. So when you could pop him at tackle, but I'm drafting him and I'm pushing him to guard. Very similar to build the guys that the Rams brought in the past, whether that's like the Austin Corbett's, very similar across the board, testing numbers, build, all of those things. The guy can play in a gap scheme. He's pretty quick off the line, which allows him on the backside of zones to consistently gain connection with 3 techs. Like, you get all of those things. He can get up to the second level, so I really like him in that sense. As a pass protector, his hands just get too wide right now. Like, just consistently they get wide, and that gets him into some trouble. As a run blocker, I think he's on the ground too much, and that's because, maybe not even on the ground. There was other guys that are on the ground more, but it was just like he's running by blocks too often, especially at tackle, because, you know, you're kind of setting the edge. He'll kind of run by blocks. It's like he's overexerting and not staying within himself, which I talk about a lot. Could, you know, be improved upon. Natural leverage is going to be there at 6'2", especially for a guard, but still the pad level, you want more consistency. Wrong. He's athletic. He's got the length. I really like Jordan McFadden. So for me, we have no guards under contract next year. This is something that could definitely help us. I mean, it may take a little time, but he doesn't have to start this year. He won't start this year, but he could probably in a pinch play a lot of different spots, and we know versatility is really the key for offensive line because you're only going to hold so many players on the roster. So if a guy can only play one position, it's difficult. Evan Brown proved that he could play center and guard, so he was great for us. Guard and tackle is kind of usually a weird thing, but because he's played both sides of the line of scrimmage, I trust that there could be more flexibility in his ability to flip both sides if necessary, and even if that's just along the interior as both guards, potentially tackle in a pinch because he's done it. So I'm taking Jordan McFadden 183. Technically on PFF, I took Asim Richards. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I like him too, but I think he's more of a vertical guy. I took him in his place. I don't know where McFadden's go. McFadden may go higher than this. He could play. He might be able to play year 1 for somebody, to be honest with you, especially if he was kicked inside. But I'm taking him at 183. Our final original pick remaining at pick number 194. The Detroit Lions select wide receiver Jason Brownlee out of Southern Miss. Now, PFF has him way down on their board, so this guy may go undrafted according to PFF. So, you know, this could be like, oh, it's a reach. But, again, I don't know what the board's going to look like, so I was just trying to take guys that I like. And I even called Rad about this. Well, we were talking on the phone. I brought this guy up. I'm like, man, I really like this guy, Jason Brownlee. And especially now after bringing in Marvin Jones Jr., I think it gives us more flexibility. The outside receiver position is weird. Rashee Rice, he's kind of went down a little bit on me, especially when I went back and watched the Senior Bowl stuff. I was like, it's not incredible. This guy wasn't at the Senior Bowl. The biggest thing that I don't love is his 40 time. You guys won't love it either when I tell you. I think he ran a 4.59 officially, and that's the biggest thing that I'm like, I wish I was faster. But at the same time as he was faster, he may go higher in the draft. I don't think speed is an issue, even though he's not consistently running away from guys. If the Lions want a consistent, can really threaten defenses over top with speed, this may not be the way that you go. But I think he brings pretty much everything else that they want from an outside receiver. Obviously, size, leaping ability. He is so good on jump balls down the field. Like, this dude flies off the ground. 39.5-inch vertical. He's got massive arms. I think his arms are over 33 inches long. Some incredibly acrobatic catches when you watch him. And I think for him, there is 3-level ability here. His ability to sink into his route breaks is really nice and maintain some speed there without kind of giving it away, which gives him a little bit of 3-level ability. I was looking for more of a guy that I felt confident and he could cross the middle of the field, you know, do some of those things on third down. For him, there's things that can be improved on. I really do. Like, for example, I think some guys have late hands, and Princeton, late hands, really nice there. I think he's got early hands. I think he, exposed himself when he's going for the ball a little bit too early. At the same time, I think he makes himself in contested situations way more than he has to be. Things can be improved upon. And then underneath, there are some focus drops. They're not easy, but some of them are high, and it's like, oh, okay, you should catch that. With some of the catches you make, you should catch that. Some control when he's in the air, and his ability to get off the line of scrimmage, I think, is there as well. He's pretty crafty with his hands. I mean, competition wasn't great. Games I've went through, Rice, Alabama, even though he didn't really show up. He didn't do a lot in the Alabama game, but that was a year ago. Tulane, Liberty. I mean, you're talking Miami actually lit up Miami, but not the best competition. But I really like a lot of things about Brownlee's game, and I'm taking him here at 194, potentially to be an outside receiver of the future. Again, I didn't love where I was with any of these spots to really just force an outside receiver pick. I could have earlier. I just didn't love it. And, maybe we have to get one next year at this point. But I like this player, so I'm willing to bet on it. And then I made a trade. So originally the draft would be over here. It would be done. That's it. And now I'm thinking, man, you didn't draft a linebacker? No. I did draft a linebacker. Here you go. Yes. For fun. Again, according to PFF, may have been undrafted. I don't know. But it's not a huge give up, okay? I trade away the 6th pick in next year's draft, 2024's draft, for the Atlanta Falcons 7th round pick, 224, and also an Atlanta Falcons 7th round pick next year. So it's kind of like a late round swap. This happens a lot. And again, I did this for a guy that I like, because when I realized that, oh gosh, okay, this is a player that seems like he's actually going to go, so I can't just say he's a UDFA signing. Seems like he's actually going to go on their board. I'm like, I wonder, it won't take much to swap picks. The Lions have done things like this. They did it for Trinity Benson. I'm going to do it. That's what I did. Servasia Dennis. I think that's how you say his name. Servasia Dennis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. I'm selecting for the Atlanta Falcons 224th pick in the 7th round. A 6-foot, 226-pound linebacker, 4-year senior. I love the way that he plays. Again, because of how we've done the offseason, I'm not against going really linebacker anywhere. Lions re-signing Jalen. I do believe that they think it's the strength of the team. I like Barnes still. Melvin Rodriguez, I don't think is losing a starting spot. And at the same time, Alex Anzalone's a starter for at least the next 2 years. Being said, it wasn't like I was looking for a starter with this spot. And I wanted a guy that I felt like could be immediately impactful on special teams. Like, he's just got that, right? I mean, we're losing a lot of that with Josh Woods, guys like that. Someone that could bring that immediately. We know Jalen does. This guy will bring that immediately to the team, okay? He's got plus speed, and also he's a very tough linebacker. This guy will bring that. My biggest concern is that he doesn't have a lot of man coverage reps, which is why his pass defense numbers are what they are. But the speed at which he diagnoses, his play speed is so much faster than what his 40 time probably would be. I think he's a little bit more of a second effort winning pass rusher, but he does have a lot of success because of his closing ability, and he does have some agility through stunts, which offensive linemen sometimes just can't keep up with. He's a consistent tackler because he gets such big range when he wraps, and you see him as a pursuit linebacker and will. Sometimes his angles are a little weird, but in terms of playing that spy role, his closing speed always just showing off. And that's because of the fact that he is just so quick to react to things. He trusts his eyes, and he's there. He's immediately there. Reminds me of Malcolm in that sense. Now, sure, you're going to get put himself in the bad spot, especially if a spy. Sometimes he'll overreact, and then he'll get himself into some tough spots. But even in coverage, he is very comfortable as a zone dropper, middle of the field. His pedal isn't great getting depth, but he's got very fluid and loose hips to change directions. He looks like a safety playing linebacker. His background actually may be safety. I probably should have checked on that. But from the games I watched, I love the way he plays run. So many negative plays that he's going to get you with. Hacks, blockers, and if you want to talk about upside, over 32-inch arms, 19 bench press reps, and almost 11-inch hands. I mean, that's like Lucas Van Ness hands. I mean, the upside to shed is there. It's just for him, sometimes he gets himself in some tough spots, so he has to be forced to recover, and it doesn't look like he can shed. But usually with guys at this size, there's no stack and shed upside. This guy has it. Right, he has it because he's strong in the upper body. You see the length, you see the hand size. He can shed. There's upside there, and I love the way that he plays the run, man. I'm a sucker for instincts, and I think he's got those. So with that being said, confidence is key. He's got that. Dennis wraps up my mock draft post free agency. Man, there was a lot of talking there, man. There was a lot of talking there. I'm going to leave it at that. I'll probably be jumping in and out, throwing stuff in here, but I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did PFF give you? I'm going to throw it on the screen here. PFF gave me a C+. They're always saying, look at that. After Banks, man, things just went down. Hey, they like Schoonmaker. They like tight ends too, I guess. Yeah, they hated everything else. I'm sorry. Hey, I got a C for Dennis. You know, hey, good trade. Good. What I got a B- for the trade. Look at that. You got to make moves. They gave me an F for Hooker. They're tired of seeing it too. Look, I'm sorry. All right, we're gonna leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.